So as soon as you think that you're in a spot where you can just relax and enjoy, something's going to happen. It's constant change. And honestly, that is the fun of it. That is the sport of it. And if that's not your shtick, you're probably in the wrong gig.
Boy, do we have a special guest today. We have Julie Cole, one of the founders of Mabel's Labels. And Julie Cole is one of those rare entrepreneurs. She's turned a pain point in her kitchen into a category-defining brand. A recovered lawyer, I think I've heard you say that a handful of times. A mom of 6, a best-selling author, and the co-founder of Mabel's Labels. This is the original waterproof kids label that's helped over 1 million families stay organized. So what started in a basement with 3 other moms is now an award-winning company that's been featured everywhere from Forbes to the Today Show. Julie's story isn't just about building a business. It's really about pivoting careers, balancing chaos with some purpose, and scaling a brand while raising a family the size of a hockey team. So Julie, welcome to From Grit to Growth. And let me start with the first question for you. You've called yourself a recovered lawyer. When was the moment you knew the courtroom wasn't your future and the basement label business was?
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. Look, it's a good question. I say very tongue-in-cheek about the recovered lawyer. The reason I made the pivot, and it wasn't that law wasn't for me. I quite liked it. I like what I was doing. But a couple of things happened. And to your point, there was a gap in the marketplace. So what happened was, along with my co-founders, who's my sister and 2 friends from college, we were young moms, and we noticed that there was a product missing from the market. We had small children, and we couldn't properly label their belongings, and we were tired of losing stuff. So, parents were using permanent marker and masking tape when they sent their kids off to daycare and got together for play dates. And everybody kind of had the same stuff, and there were mix-ups. So we thought, there must be something out there. And there wasn't. So that was reason 1 for the recovered lawyer status, was having an idea. And I often say that to people who are like, how did you come up with the idea? And we say, go through your day, find something that annoys you and fix it. There you go. If it's bothering you, it's probably bothering a lot of other people. And especially I think in this like mom market and kids products, it's such a big industry, right? So there was that. And then the second thing for me, again, leaving the courtroom, which I actually quite liked, was that at the time, my eldest child, who had just turned 3, was diagnosed with autism. And I didn't think the traditional workforce was going to suit my lifestyle. I wanted to be able to advocate for him. I wanted to be able to set up a quite intensive therapy program. And honestly, he already had 2 younger siblings at that point. So it was kind of a gong show around here anyway. So a little flexibility was going to suit our family. And I thought entrepreneurship would provide that flexibility, and it did. So those were the 2 reasons for doing that pivot. And often there are a few things that will instigate that, particularly for women when we become mothers, because, of the demands of parenthood, and because a lot of this invisible load of parenthood and a lot of this default parenting stuff still is falling on women. So that's why you see so many mom entrepreneurs, and why that segment has really grown, particularly during COVID. Women were taking up startups. They were doing their side hustles full time. And you really see growth. Women are starting businesses at an incredible rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just actually also interviewed another mompreneur a couple weeks ago with also 6 kids, I believe. That's just a tough feat, right? So you're in the basement. One of the things with entrepreneurs is getting the idea off the piece of paper and into action. So take us to that basement. You've got this great idea. You're going to kill it in regards to a pain point. Get rid of the masking tape, get rid of the permanent markers, make something a lot more safe all the way around, right? How do you go from idea? What's next? How do you jumpstart that thing?
Yeah. So that could be the big barrier to entry for people, right? Because it's one thing to have an idea, and then it's another thing to put it through like testing and to that stage and to do a mock-up. And that's really what we did. So we knew what we wanted to create. Then it was a matter of finding the material that would do what we wanted it to do. And we actually didn't think it was going to be that hard. And I can remember doing my first baby show and dad's coming up to me saying, well, I can just print this off my printer. And I'm like, you go home and try that because that's not going to work, and it doesn't. So we did a lot of testing of different material. Things were sitting in our dishwasher for a year, just continually being tested. Because the other thing we had going for us is we knew our market, right? We knew our market because we were our market, and moms want products that are going to do what they say they're going to do. They want them to be cute. They had to be durable. They had to be dishwasher safe. They had to be microwave safe. Otherwise, just keep using the masking tape, which wasn't cutting it. So it was just a lot of testing until we found a material that would do the job. And of course, we had to think outside the box because the material that we ended up using was used for something entirely different. But that's what entrepreneurs do, right? You just have to have a bit of grit. You have to have a little appetite for risk, and you have to just kind of go for it and try it. Now, the other challenge often when you're bringing a new product to market is that you have to actually educate the market that they need your product. But luckily for us, it wasn't really a tough sale because people would see our labels out in the wild and say, what is that? Like moms sitting at the side of the soccer field were talking about Mabel's labels. You do a daycare drop off and somebody sees a water bottle or a sippy cup with a child's name on it and being like, what is that thing, right? So parents understood the product. So we felt like we had a little bit of ease about educating the market because they figured it out pretty quickly that they needed it. And that, I think, really contributed to that early growth that we had. And you have to remember too, right? Like this is 22 years ago. So we had other challenges. There was no social media, right? So for a startup, that was like, how are we going to let the moms know about this? We can't afford an ad in Parenting Magazine. Back in the day, that was a lot of money, but we did rely heavily on word of mouth. And, she told two friends and she told two friends. And that really, really worked for us. And then, of course, once social media hit, moms were like really owning that space. And so, the mom bloggers were out and they were talking about us and moms were owning Facebook. So then word of mom really, really worked to our benefit because social media became a vehicle for word of mouth, which is the best way for moms to hear about products.
Yeah. I like that. When you started, there were three other co-founders, right? And how did you look at each other and not get into that Spider-Man meme where everybody's pointing at each other and just kind of figure out who's going to be doing what each day? And how do you, so you don't have this confusing office of the chairman kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a really great question. It can be very messy. And you have to really sort of communicate. I think at the beginning, it was very much like all hands on deck, right? Like everybody's doing everything. We kind of loosely had you maybe research some materials and try these. And Julie, you maybe go and talk to moms in the market and see what kind of things they're wanting. And so we kind of did a bit of a divide and conquer, which I do also believe contributed to our early growth because you had four brains, four skill sets coming to the table. And you also had four personalities, four feisty women. So we had, lots of communication, lots of, having to, because we were all close before we started the company, you also have to know who you're getting into bed with, right? So we knew each other really well. And then eventually, as the company grew, we just naturally went to the areas that made more sense. Like, so, one of the partners came from a finance background. So it just made sense that she, did the IT finance side. So we all just kind of went where we were. And it was good too, because I found, especially in those days, again, pre-podcasts, pre-social media, the entrepreneurship game and that solo entrepreneurship could be very lonely. I had a lot of
Yeah.
solo entrepreneur friends who were just, in their basements or at their kitchen tables, and it was a lonely slog. So for the four of us too, we had each other. And when one of us would get in a funk and be like, what are we doing? Why, like, what did we think we could do? We're making labels in a basement. Why did I leave my job? The other three could rally and be like, dude, we've got this, right? Or if one of us was going in for another C-section or had sick kids, the others were like, I got you, right? So we could really cover for each other as well. Now, I do think as the company grew, we had to be very careful. We had to really understand how each other communicated. We ended up bringing in a coach who worked with us. We kind of called him our like coach daddy. Like he would come to meetings and just make sure that everything was good, because we found whatever department we had, one of the risks we fell into was siloing a bit. Like, the production person might protect the production staff, and the marketing person might protect the marketing people. And, so we had to make sure that there was somebody overlooking the entire business and making sure that this siloing wasn't happening, because, for the health of the company, we were at a point where we're kind of like, running like a four-headed horse, and that runs out of time.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
We've heard that before. We've heard the loneliness before as well. So I'm going to go to the end really quick and then back up again. But you sold to Avery, Mabel's Labels was it 2016?
Yeah, around
17, somewhere around there. So you guys were running this for how many years on your own? 14 years on your own. So can you take us through, I think what could be really interesting is, what were the big peaks and what were the big valleys in that 14-year journey?
Yeah, I think, the big peaks were when we really were aware that we made it. Like, we would notice how these like spikes would happen. So say we got a media hit and we would get an initial spike, and then things would calm down for 2 weeks, and then we'd get the second spike. And that second spike, we always said it was because the first spike, people got their labels and were using them. And the second spike, people saw them and ordered. And after that second spike happened, we would never go down again. So it would just keep going up. So when we saw that pattern was happening, we realized, our brand, there was trust in our brand. Our products were doing what they said. We were making sure that we were accessible, and we built community. And that was a lot of fun. I was one of those early OG mom bloggers, because moms, the way they make their purchasing decisions is they want to feel connected to the brands. So being visible and being out there was really important. And that's what I love. So it worked out great. So those sort of peaks were that building of community. And I'd say the big one for us was when like the last partner quit their day job, and we're like, nobody has to go back to their real jobs. We're good, when we saw that our steady growth, and when we understood our cycle, we knew what camp season looked like. We knew what back to school season looked like, and we could start planning and for those. And the valleys, of course, are like anything else, like those sleepless nights, those times when, oh God, a machine's broken down. What are we going to do? The times of uncertainty, all of that stuff is really, really nerve-wracking in those early days, that like, what have we done? But I don't think, because we had that early growth, I don't think we struggled the way I see a lot of people struggling, especially because we did, like we say, had each other to rely on. That was a significant benefit of having the four of us. And also, you're just spreading out the risk a bit. Like the money we put in, it was half the, it was a quarter of the money, that sort of thing.
What, one thing I've always heard, I love this saying, you want something done, you give it to a busy mom. And tell me a little bit about, how you balanced the family, but getting over the mom guilt, which I think is pretty prevalent as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of strategies, I think. First of all, I gave up mom guilt about 5 kids ago because it's just not productive. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help them. Lying in bed at night thinking I'm a bad mother, not useful. So basically, if I feel a little bit of mom guilt creeping in, I make a change. I'm like, oh, maybe I need to spend more time with that one or do something because I'm starting to feel this thing. And then I just make the change. And I think, I have to be highly productive, right? Like I was running a business, I was raising all these kids. And so I didn't have time to let useless things live rent free in my brain. And I think mom guilt is one of those useless things. So when I make a mistake, I would apologize. I would say, like, if I screw up with my kid, I'll be like, dude, you know what? I think I could have done that differently. This is what I learned from it. And this is how I would do it now that I know what I know. And they're like, oh, that's cool, mom. And then I do. And then I learn from it. I move on and I don't let that weigh me down because again, it's pointless. Plus, then I have kids who also have seen a role model say mistakes are okay. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. And we take those and we learn from it. It's the same with our families as it is in business. We make mistakes in business. Those are the best lessons, right? So I don't think there can be any like shame or guilt or anything around that. It's just growth. And it's all how you position that. And so I think I've been good at positioning that. I also like literally don't sweat the small stuff. Like I mean, if my kids we're getting hot dogs 3 nights in a row, so be it. It's back to school season. Label making is crazy right now. I'll make up for it later. They're going to be okay. The kids are all right. Nobody's had scurvy yet. We're good. So, I keep it all in perspective. Probably perspective has been my secret sauce is that, if the kids' rooms are messy or whatever, I'm not going to sweat it. In fact, I just had our team party here at my house and 2 of the little kids went home and said to their mom, who's on our customer service teams, they were just shocked. They're like, Julie didn't even care that we walked into her house with wet feet from the pool. And I'm like, yeah, I pick the hills I'm going to die on. And that's not one. There are very few hills I will die on. So I think that's what's kind of gotten me through is that I don't, perseverate on the things that don't really matter. And that allows me to get a lot done.
Oh, I love that. I hope every single person listens to that and thinks about how they can, the 80-20 rule is crap, in my opinion. It's really a 95-5 rule, right? 5% matters, 95% really does not in the grand scheme.
It really doesn't. And, I think about this with my kids now because they're older. Like the youngest is 16. And it actually really, like a lot of our parenting, like as long as I'm present and talk with them and communicate with them, like the things they remember even are different to what you think matter and what you think they'll remember. So it's kind of freeing. Like I have a kid who started driving lessons and he said he had to really try hard not to do rolling stops at stop signs because me and dad never stop at stop signs. And I'm like, we always stop at stop signs. I'm like, oh, wait, like in my mind, I'm like, what is he talking about? But I'm like, interesting. I don't remember it that way. Because I'm not going to argue with him like how he remembers things.
Right.
But I mean, there's a lot of things I drive badly at. I do lazy lefts. Call me out on that. But I do stop at stop signs, but you can't fight perceptions. So it is kind of freeing.
Yeah, I love that. You are definitely an early, so Mabel's Labels started and is still an e-commerce brand, essentially, right? You are really an early one on that. So what have you seen in the e-commerce arena that's really changed from the time that you started to the now of e-commerce?
Oh, it's a really good point. Can I answer everything? Like when we started, we had people who were still like, ooh, do I want to put the Visa number in the computer machine? Like, that was those early e-commerce days. And of course, I mean, the evolution has just been huge. And like, this has been part of the fun of being what Mabel's Labels is and creating an innovative brand and a culture that breeds innovation is that, we find this fun. We find this sport. Like anybody can just follow along and copy other businesses or whatever, but being on the leading edge of this, like we are the ones who like jump on the newest trends. We'll try out the newest platforms. We're like I said, we were like the early mom bloggers. Like we did everything kind of first and in this space and, getting a website that was mobile friendly. Like we were doing that stuff. And I think that sort of innovation has kept us as a market leader. If you don't innovate, you die. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
That's right. That's right. I love it.
Tell us a little bit about some of the, I guess when you're starting, there were some challenges and there were probably some moments where maybe the four of you looked at each other and said, you know what, I'm not sure. Because every founder goes through that. Revisionist history allows us to kind of eliminate those things, but they happen.
Yeah.
And, so what were those for you and what advice do you have for founders that might be facing that today?
Yeah, I think you do need to remember that you need a community, because if you are alone, and yes, you have access to podcasts now and social media and online groups and things like that, but you can get in your head and those brain gremlins can lie to you. So you might be thinking, I can't do this. You might be thinking this is a bigger obstacle than it is. One phone call, one chat with a mentor, one networking group who you can share this with might completely change your mind. So you need to make sure that you remember your network is your net worth. Be communicating with people, because in isolation, and I honestly, the parallels between motherhood and entrepreneurship, the way motherhood can be so isolating, you can think I'm doing it all wrong. I'm screwing up my kids. You can do that with your business too. I'm doing it all wrong. I'm screwing up this business. That's never going to happen. It's all going to be a failure. I can't believe the parallels. So I would say first, make sure you're surrounding yourself with people with support. And I'm a big fan of the non-dramatic quiet exit too. If people aren't, rooting for you, if they're not on your side, you don't need to bring them along for the ride, like as Babe Ruth said, the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats, right? You don't need to fill those seats. You don't need those people in your room. So make sure you surround yourself with the right people, first of all. I think that's really key. I'm trying to think what else. I think if you have other co-founders like I did, I think you need to make sure you treat the business like a business. And also, if you're a solo entrepreneur, like get that business plan together. We had minutes from our very first meeting, or like when we're having beers around my kitchen table, like we had minutes for that. And the other thing, if you have co-founders, is make sure that early on you put a shareholders agreement together, because you want to make sure that you do that while everybody's still friends. Because if you have a partner divorce, it's worse than a marital divorce. It can get very ugly. So you want to make sure you've put things legally in place to make things go more smoothly if, the shit hits the fan.
That's really good advice. And that's so true. And we've seen that before. We've seen those nasty divorces. So did Avery approach you for the acquisition?
So yes, they did. So we weren't actually, and my advice always is like, even when you start your company, think about an exit, because it'll determine how you're going to manage it. Is it going to be a legacy business? Are you going to sell it? Are you prepared to how you're going to feel afterwards? Are you going to be emotionally ready? Or are you going to have an identity crisis? Who am I now that I'm not Mabel's Labels? Like you need to think about all those things. However, we weren't. So Avery did call us out of the blue. And it was 14 years in. And we were at that point thinking we need to make a change, because we were doing that four-headed horse thing. And we were being like, I don't think this is going to work. We need one CEO. How are we going to do this? And then we get the call out of the blue. And that was in July. And, with a conversation, we're like, yeah, we're open to a conversation. And the conversation went very well, and it continued. And our closing was the end of December. So that's very, very fast. And I don't like entrepreneurs to think that that's normal. People will get left at the altar. There are so many problems that can happen. They can they can make an offer, and then they do due diligence and take a peek under the covers. And then they're like, we're going to give you $2 million less because of this, this, this. So there's a whole lot involved in that exiting process. And that's a whole other podcast. We could chat about that. But yes, so for us, it happened very quickly. But I would also say it's very good to prepare for an exit, because you want to also make sure your numbers are right, so that your EBITDA is correct, so that you get the right selling price. And there's lots of things to consider. But yes, we did sell it. But I'm still I'm the last one, but I'm still with the company. 2 exited right away, 2 of the partners.
Yep.
One stuck around for a bit, and I'm still there, and I'm still loving it. It still feels like my baby, you know?
Oh, that's great.
How did you fund the business at the start? So many questions we get, and it's typically the wrong question to start with. You know, I need money, I need to grow, but they don't. Founders need to first of all figure out, you know, the product market fit and the ideal customer, how huge the market is, where they fit in that whole thing, and then determine if they need capital, where should it come from. So did you bootstrap, or did you go out and raise any capital along the way?
Right. So we did bootstrap. And again, that was the benefit of having the 4 of us, you know,
Right.
and, you know, putting out that risk. And we never did fundraise. We never did. I think the benefits of bootstrapping is it does make you very scrappy. You know, we're very like, we've got a lot of skin in the game. But and women generally, I like get 4% of funding. Like it's very low. It's very bad. It's very bad. Women are not getting a lot of funding. And I think we're going to see a shift on that because as we see more women succeed in their businesses and doing big sellouts, now they're investing a lot of women founded businesses, which is awesome. So I think we are going to see a change, but it's also, I think, the shift is happening as well, but especially at that time, women were more inclined to go after kind of love money, like go to their parents and say, hey, want to pitch in 10 grand? And then to their auntie, do you want to pitch in 10 grand? And like go into family, like we called it love money. That's what a lot of women did. They weren't as inclined to go into a bank and say, hey, I want you to lend me this. But we are seeing a shift. I think for the other thing for us too, because a lot of people are like, you should go on Shark's Tank, but we didn't ever need to, you know, like we started making money that we can invest right back into the business. And we didn't really want to give up any of the equity in our business because there were 4 of us. So we actually only had 25% each. So there are a lot of things to consider when you're going after the funding. And the other thing I think to consider too is don't just take from any investor. You want to make sure, like I said, with your co-founders, you want to know who you're getting in bed with. Same with your staff, same with your suppliers. You want to make sure they're aligned, right? So when investors are interviewing you, you interview them too. If they're not a fit, you can wait and find somebody who is.
Yeah,
So good.
absolutely. That's a really important aspect because a lot of times these interviews, we see them as one-way interviews, even for a job. I mean, I always tell the clients that I coach, I said, you know what, you're interviewing that company as much as they're interviewing you. You need to figure out if that's a fit. And you're right with the investors. I think that is quite interesting. I want to take a little bit of a sidestep and talk about being a mom and an entrepreneur at the same time and the impact it has on your kids. A lot of times, the way I hear it is, well, it's going to make me so busy. It's going to make me have to choose, and I'm going to have to give up some time with my kids and stuff like that. Whether that's true or not, tell us about the positive impact that it has being a mom and an entrepreneur for your kids. We've got older kids as well, but you've got some older kids now. So what kind of positive impact has that had on your kids?
Yeah, so I think in the early days, the positive impact was that I did have flexibility, you know, but I do warn people that flexibility doesn't get your work done for you. So yes, I went on school field trips, but I was also on my laptop at midnight like that. But that's okay. That's what I chose. That's what I wanted. So, you know, business plans and play dates at the same time, right? Like that's what I wanted. So that was good. I think a lot of it really was about managing their expectations and everybody. And I say this to people who are thinking about starting a business, like you need to know, like you all, like everybody is sort of romanticizing entrepreneurship. They think it's all TED Talks and book deals and it looks like making labels in a basement when you're pregnant with your 4th kid till 2 a.m. and then getting up at 6 and taking your kid with autism for therapy. Like it's really not glamorous. It looks like a lot of mom buns and a lot of yoga pants and, you know, a lot of not getting your nails done. That's what it really looks like in entrepreneurship, right? And so I think, you know, if you have a family, a partner and kids, you have to be like, you need to know when these kids go to bed 8 o'clock, you're not pouring a glass of wine and throw a Netflix on. Like none of that is happening. You might be doing without a family holiday holiday because you've given up a second income. There are going to be a lot of sacrifices. Now, for us, we were okay with that. That was a decision that we made. And seeing the kids kind of grow up around Mabel's labels it's been a riot. From them running around in the basement while we're making labels to having summer jobs, making labels to, all of it. And I have 5 kids in college right now. So, I think the other thing that's been hugely beneficial for them is that they've seen a mom who can manage things, can get run down, but have a good attitude about it, who can be like, I need you guys to be independent. I need you guys to do this for me. You forgot your lunch? Sorry, I can't bring it. You won't do that again, but let me put something in place to help you remember next time. They were raised with a certain amount of independence because that was a necessity. And I am a big believer in natural consequences. And they were surrounded by a mom who, was passionate, could love her family. And the same mom who has big dreams outside the home is the same mom who has big dreams inside the home, or the same person.
Yeah, that's great. That's just so solid advice. I think, you go through an exit of your business, which is your baby in a way. How do you think about what's next for you? You're still there clearly, and you're pounding away, but what's the next succession, I guess, for you? And it just kind of walked through the highs and lows of selling the company and then waking up the next morning and kind of looking around and saying, wow, okay, that was it.
Yeah, I know. Look, it's something that founders have very different experiences with this. My experience was, I thought it was the best thing for the business. So I was very happy. We needed that change. And, it provided us access because they were buying our brand. It wasn't like they came in and they changed Mabel's labels. We're still in the same production facility. It's still the same staff. It's still Mabel's labels. All of that culturally remained. So it felt a lot like now we have some support. We have access to higher level HR. We have access to higher level law. We have access to some resources that we didn't have access to before. So would I, normally I might be budgeting. I'll be like, hey, I'm going to take the team out and spend this much money on an adventure because I feel like it. Can't do that anymore, right? There are certain things that some freedoms that are taken away, but I get it, it's give and take. So I think, for me, it was a very smooth transition. I've been there, 9 years, and I'm still loving it. As soon as I don't love it and I'm out, or as soon as it's not a fit, then I'm out, and that's good. That's all right. I'm good with that. When the time is right, the time is right. And then what happens? I probably do my own thing, juliecole.com. I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of media. I do a lot of stuff, right? Or I just go on a big holiday for a bit, or I just go and, hang out. Who knows? I'll see where the wind takes me. I'm really one day at a time at this point, but a lot of founders do have that problem in their exit. That they do have that identity crisis. I say it's like a football player who blows a knee and then they're like, now who am I?
Yeah.
What am I now?
Right.
Not this, what am I? And, I just spoke at Co-Create in Las Vegas, and there was a guy on my panel who was going through this right now. And, it can be a real identity crisis. So I think while you're exiting or thinking about exit, you do have to think about, okay, so what's next? Do I want to get into mentoring? Do I want to maybe do some coaching? Where is my value? And where can I take what I've learned and what I'm passionate about and transfer it somewhere else so that I feel like my cup is still full?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of learning, and maybe this can be our last question, tell us, every entrepreneur doesn't realize how much they need to learn when they start a business and run a business, whether it's finding a manufacturer, setting up an e-commerce site, working with a wholesale partner. There's just so many things. So tell us, what have been a couple of your greatest learnings throughout your journey?
I think that you just have to accept and learning. And it's never going to stop. And I say you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because as soon as you think you know what you're doing, something's going to change. Like, we're like, okay, well, we're at this much in sales a year, so we're good at this level. And then something happens. You're like, oh, I have to make some hires. Oh, I don't know anything about HR. What am I going to do about that? Oh, maybe I should contract an HR person. Maybe I should take a course. So as soon as you think that you're in a spot where you can just relax and enjoy, something's going to happen. It's constant change. And honestly, that is the fun of it. That is the sport of it. And if that's not your shtick, you're probably in the wrong gig. Like, get a 9-to-5 or work with the government, whatever. That's fine, because you have to be constantly learning, constantly evolving, changing, following trends, seeing where your audience is. I mean, my original audience, they were all on Facebook. Where are they now? Now we got to be on Instagram and TikTok. You have to evolve with your customer and go where they are. So I think you just have to just have a passion for learning.
Beautiful.
That was fantastic.
Julie, this is great. I mean, just such excellent down-to-earth advice. And, I know you have so many more careers ahead of you, I think, but what you built and done and already accomplished with your own family and your own business is very aspirational. Thanks for sharing the story with us. Everybody check out Mabel's Labels. Get your labels, get everything you need for your house. Even if you don't need it, get it anyway.
Yeah, you heard the part about the 5 kids in college. Buy your labels, people.
That's right. Super cool too, because you can personalize the labels, and so many designs, so many colors. Put the name on it. It is a super cool product. So check it out.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Julie, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.